and welcome to Capital Investment Committee meeting of January 24th, 2019. I'll call the meeting to order. Consideration number one, consideration of minutes for November 29th, 2018. May I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Stan says aye too.
I do say aye.
Aye. Number two, consideration of request for sanitary sewer availability approval for 4034 Clovercroft Road.
So this request is for an availability that was actually granted in mid-October 2017. We grant them for 1 year. The resident didn't construct the service in 1 year, so this is just an extension of that request.
Exactly. Any motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Number three, consideration of a variance for Title 18 for 1215 Hillsborough Road. What do we have there?
So this is, yeah, the
Representatives of the
representatives from
applicant.
the church are here. I'm sorry. It slipped my mind. So this is for a request for a variance from Title 18 for the Christ Community Church. This the church would like to construct a youth center, which they propose to tie off of their existing service line. Per our Title 18, we don't normally do that. We like them to tie off of the main for several reasons. Water quality, for pressure reasons, a lot of other things as well. There is in the attachments on that. There's the two proposed exhibits. The one that they have suggested where they tie off of their 8-inch water line, and then there's our proposed suggestion, which is tying off in front of the meter, which would be tying off of the main. So we've discussed with the applicant. We've had some meetings. Their initial availability request was granted back in 2012 for 29 SFUEs. This availability request for the youth center is an additional 13 SFUEs. Because the meter is oversized at this location, it's a 6-inch meter, which is large for only 29 SFUEs. Our recommendation is to actually allow them to tie off of their service line, but to pay the required impact fees that are associated with both water and sewer for a 1-inch meter.
Let me ask you this,
Yeah,
Matt.
okay.
If this were coming up out of the ground all together at once, would a 6-inch meter and what they're doing would you still have the same recommendation?
There are times we did pull their usage information, and there's times that they approach. If you were adding the 29 SFUEs plus the 13 SFUEs, there are times that they would exceed that availability.
I guess what I'm asking is, they have a 6-inch line.
Yes.
And would a 6-inch line serve 29 and 13, 42?
There are times that they pull above 42.
Okay, we know that because of history, but
Yes.
if they were coming in asking for 42 and having a 6-inch line,
We would probably require them to yes, it would suffice.
okay.
The
So in
reason
this
they have
ca-
a larger line is for fire protection.
Okay, so in this case,
Oh.
if they were coming in from scratch with a green lot and 6 inches and 42 SFUEs, we'd think that was adequate.
We would, but they would be required to pay those impact fees.
That's,
Yep.
okay, that's different.
Yep.
Okay, so engineering and pressure and all that, it seems safe and adequate.
Correct.
The issue is, from staff's perspective, you're prepared to recommend the variance, but ask for the fee that we would get.
The impact fee from both the water and sewer connection,
Okay.
yes.
What is the applicant's position on the fee part?
It's 8,732
That,
total, correct?
so that is just for the water. We
that-
inadvertently missed the sewer, so the total fee would be 25,947.
All right, go ahead. Can you give us your
My
name?
name's Adam Sager. I'm with Dale and Associates. We're the civil engineer for the project.
All right.
Did you say water and sewer fee would be 25,000-ish, something like that? What is the difference if that was enacted versus if we would tie on to tap a whole new main? I mean, in
It
other
would still-
words,
It would still be the same.
it would be the same,
You'd get
right?
the 25 either way.
Yeah, that's,
They
okay.
pay it.
Then, yeah, we would accept it, because we don't really have a choice. We want to build the building.
No, I just want to make sure, I just want to make sure what your ask is.
The ask is that, as you can see from the exhibit,
The ask is to tie on,
to tie onto our own water line that already exists right in front of the
take the
building.
variance
Yes.
with the fee that would be, that would be
Well, it's
applied either way.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah,
Is that accurate?
that's accurate.
Okay. I move that the committee recommend that the applicant be granted the variance as recommended by staff with the fees that are appropriate.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion on this? Margaret, Brandy?
Yeah, ma'am.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4 to nothing.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. Number 4, consideration of final change order for the construction contract, 2015-0062 for the water treatment plant modifications project with Judy Construction for $79,790. Or
Decrease.
decrease, sorry.
Move approval with comment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, comment.
Not that I have a long memory, but there were those who suggested in the summer and fall of 2017 that this project was over budget. And it turns out it's not. It actually came in under budget. Imagine that.
Wow.
Move approval.
I think we
I
had
did that, right?
Yes.
Then aye.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes, yes.
Yeah, it was you.
Mark. Who was it? No, it was Margaret. Was Mark, it was Margaret. Number 5, consideration of final, organization,
Chairman ex officio.
change order to construction contract 2017-0198 with Civil Contractors LLC for the Goose Creek Inn sanitary sewer extension project for a decrease in the amount of $89,195.80 and a time extension through August 24th, 2018. Who would like to speak to this?
So this is for the interceptor that was
Goose
that
Creek Inn.
the Goose Creek interceptor that
We
took
saw
out
the pictures. We'll never unsee those again. I won't.
That's
that
true.
took that small wastewater plant offline.
Yeah.
Civil Constructors this was a 90-day contract. They were significantly behind schedule. And we worked with them, but we charged a significant amount of liquidated damages, which brought that number to what it is. The time request is we're extending it through the substantial completion that we determined when the project met it, which was 6 months beyond what they were initially supposed to be at.
Move for approval.
Second.
So that date, August 24th, was correct on that?
Yeah, and this is just to close the project out.
All right,
Everything's been
got it.
completed and submitted.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes 4-0. Number 6, consideration of the final reconciliation agreement or change order for the construction contract number 2014-0288 for Revere Control Systems Inc. for the water distribution and collection system improvements, project for a decreased amount of $116,828.98, and time extension on this one was 297 calendar days. So what is this one about, Michelle?
So this one is for the
This is-
the upgraded SCADA system that we did for both the collection and distribution system. It's SCADA is kind of our control system where we can see pump stations and power failures and all those types of things that control the stations from our public works building. We ran into some difficulties with kind of the integration of those systems. We have some redundancy involved that proved challenging, but Revere, this is just a final change order and close the project out.
Right.
Everything is working and functional, and we are reaping the benefits of that system
All
right
right,
now.
may I have a,
Move for approval. Second.
all right, any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. Number 7, consideration of draft resolution 2019-01, a resolution directing staff to proceed with the flood insurance rate mapping associated with Ralston Branch. Paul
So,
or Jonathan.
so Rossman Branch, it basically starts up
Michelle.
near Huffines Ridge Drive and I-65 near Centennial High School, and it flows through the Liberty Hill subdivision through that big existing retention pond. So back in 2015, we started on doing flood studies to evaluate different options. There's also been some residents out there that have been complaining about bank failures. There's one area where there's been a big bank failure that we've been working on. We said, well, before we try to go in there and do an engineering solution or fix something, let us see if there's also a flood reduction method that can be done to better utilize that retention pond. We analyze multiple different options, trying to figure out a way to do any type of large flood reduction. There were no solutions that we were able to identify, so we decided we also studied the floodplain, and right now this exhibit that Jonathan has up, this is the FEMA flood map. This is the limits of their study. So as part of this contract, what we did was we also studied the existing floodplain. And this here is Ralston Creek that goes up to that existing pond right there. We'll go to the next slide. During this time period, we mapped the actual floodplain, as you can see up through here. What's shaded in blue would be added. That area has always been floodplain. It just hasn't been mapped. When we got the initial results of the flood study, we wanted to make sure that it was right and try to calibrate that model based on what we've heard from residents. One way we were able to do that was by going back and looking at damage reports back from 2010 flood, and every one of these red blocks here represents damage that occurred, some in the crawl space, some in the floor framing, some was HVAC, some damage to out parcel buildings. Ultimately, it ended up lining up very well. One of the with the actual flood study. What's interesting to note is this column here on the right. The base flood elevation is lower than the actual finished floor elevations for all of these structures. However, we looked at this and talked internally as to whether we should proceed with mapping and wanted to bring that back to the board. In November of 2018, we shared this result with all the impacted residents. We also went over the project. We put signs up in both subdivisions, tried to encourage as many people to come as possible. Obviously, they're not excited about the news of being mapped, but engineering looking at this, you know, right now as part of the CRS program, the community rating system, one way we get points is by mapping floodplains that are unmapped right now. And essentially, you get a rating of class 1 through 10, 1 being the best rating, 10 being you're not really participating in the program. We're right now a class rating of 8. The better the rating you have, the bigger discount that offers to our residents on insurance premiums.
I was wondering why you were being so proud about our rating. I was like, well.
So this is one way to improve that rating, is to try to do those. The other thing is, you know, now that we've studied this at the residents' request, we are required to regulate based off of best available information. This is the best available information. So I guess the big question comes down is, should we proceed with mapping this floodplain? It was engineering's recommendation that we should proceed with mapping it, given the fact that we have it. The estimated cost to do that would be around $35,000. And again, we have informed the property owners. It would still require us to go back and hold public meetings as part of the mapping process with those residents. And our observation, based on what happened in 2010, the study that we have done lines up very well with that.
All right, does this mean that, or when they contacted me, it was the flood insurance they didn't want to have to buy? Was that what they were concerned about?
Yeah. Right, and the other thing, you were saying that they have the option of taking it or not taking it because the flood line comes up, it doesn't come up to the finished floor. Is that correct?
That is correct. My understanding of this is that they could easily, for $1,000 some, and surveys actually already done, they could petition FEMA with a floodplain certificate once it's mapped, and that would bring their structure out of the floodplain, and they would no longer be required from a lender to have that type of flood insurance, although it might be in their best interest to have it.
Did you tell them that?
Yes, it has. We have told them that. It was stated at the meeting. I was actually very relieved
gonna
to
have
see
to
that the finished floor elevations were generally above the base flood
And we've
elevation.
preliminarily done that, that's what this chart up in the corner does show.
What, were they all above the finished floor?
They were all above.
All right,
Although the 2010 report shows damage in crawl spaces and floor framing.
so what's the, are the pros and the cons, what are the pros of doing this, of doing the mapping for us then, bottom line?
I'd say it's
Just
probably
the-
emergency services, knowing that it's well advertised that this is floodplain, it's knowledge. I think those are the biggest for future buyers, existing property owners.
Okay.
There's also a factor of being kind of clear and predictable as well, so we're required to regulate based on best known information. If we regulate on this and it's not a mapped floodplain, people are really not even gonna know what we're regulating on. If that, does that make
Just
sense?
guessing at it.
That's, yeah, they're guessing.
Okay. Yeah, we've had, you know, I just talked to a couple people today about this. So we can't slow the water down. That's one of their main concerns because they think we go in there and fix some of this stuff, we're still gonna have the same problem. They wanna know about dredging that and making it deeper or what, because when that water flows back there, it's rapid. And they said if one of the children get out, even some of the dogs, they really are afraid because that water is very rapidly flowing through that creek. And then, so we don't have a way to slow the water down. Is that correct?
That's correct. One of the options we looked at was, and we went extreme with it, putting all options on the table, is what if we drain the entire lake and made it deeper
Yeah.
and put in vertical walls, show us something that'll work. And our consultant looked at that and said, there's nothing you can do. Anything you do to try to slow the water down is going to impact upstream property owners. If you try to release it faster, it affects downstream property owners. That the best thing we could do was, at this point, just leave it as is.
Is there anywhere in that entire area from McEwen on down that we can put a retention area?
Not that we were able to identify, to have a noticeable impact on it.
Yeah.
The answer is no.
Yeah, that's a problem. And then I've got somebody saying the only way, reason we're doing some of that is because, you know, some of these people have asked for help. And then if you said, oh, well, we're only doing this mapping and everything and working with FEMA to get more money, that's our reasoning behind it. But we know that that's not what
They
we're
don't
doing.
cut us a check for
They
having
don't.
more flood properties.
No.
It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't.
But it does affect
It
the
does on the
insurance.
internet.
Well,
The-
yeah.
The insurance benefit, you know, it could help folks with discounts on insurance. That's the only thing that it could
That
tie
helps us-
directly to them.
Home insurance.
That helps
Oh,
us.
the flood insurance that they would.
So as part of the CRS program, they're gonna look at what we've accomplished over the last year. That is one thing that helps us get points to ultimately score better and hopefully get us a better rating to bring insurance premiums down long-term.
Oh, so the
There-
rating
there's
is
no-
what
yeah.
brings the insurance.
But
yeah,
also to
right,
let
okay,
individuals get out of mandatory insurance
if they want.
if they want.
They,
I mean, we're- we're-
they can step through a
If we,
process.
if
They
we
can sit through
approve
a
if we
process.
approve this item, we will be creating choices for taxpayers.
Mhm.
Move
Absolutely.
approval.
All right. And, okay, do we have a second?
Sure, second.
All right. Ann, did you want to speak to this?
I
Obviously.
did, I was just, I now have heard that it's a benefit to the city through the CRS program, perhaps. But my question was, what is the benefit here? Because even though, and I had not read that that some of these houses had water in their crawl space or something like that. But if you get flooding, the main problem there is the banks of the stream caving in. Is that, would that be accurate to say?
That's where most of the complaints from the residents came from, yes.
And a lot of them have caved in.
But if you have flood insurance, they don't go back and fix the banks of the stream, do they?
No, that would
No,
be-
so,
It's more
so,
that would be
anything that
us.
might happen to their property.
so really, if they're going to have to spend $1,000 to get out of the floodplain so that they won't be required to have flood insurance, or if they want to sell their house, I think it's still going to show up that you need flood insurance, whether they are buying it or not. I'd just like for us to think more about, as I say, what is the benefit in
Yeah,
this?
it's difficult to say there's a direct benefit to those property owners. But it's also hard for us to say when we know more to not integrate it into an updated map. I mean, I don't know how we ignore the information we now know. And that's the hard part for us, is, you know, there isn't an engineering solution. But
That's right.
in exploring these engineering solutions, we've done more mapping, we know more, and we sort of, well, we're coming to you saying we feel obligated to update the flood maps accordingly.
Yes.
This will go to the full board though, correct?
Yes.
As I say, I just don't, I don't see that there's an upside to doing this. And there is, I see downside
You mean to mapping?
to put it officially in the floodplain.
Yeah.
That is what I'm talking about.
That will involve mapping.
Yes, yes. And for the homeowners, and I, you know, I went to the meeting and I did not note anybody saying that they wanted to be covered by flood insurance, but I did not speak to everyone, and I just had a few people later contact me, and
That was the general consensus at the meeting. They were not wanting that.
No, they weren't.
that's
I mean,
right.
that's-
Talked to them, so.
That's right. And
So what do we do? I'm,
The one thing I can
There's-
offer is any future homeowners that buy a house in that area would then know at least they're in the floodplain.
Yeah, and
Whereas right now, someone who
don't
buys it,
understand.
you're not disclosing anything because it's not actually
True.
there
That is a problem.
on a piece of paper.
How it affects existing property owners versus your
Future property owners.
future and
Or insurance
just a
rates of
general
others.
commitment to
Yeah.
having the best information available reflected in your
and,
mapping.
and they have the option to opt out of that flood insurance because their finished floor is not in it, correct?
they do. That is correct as
So
far as
they
I
have an
understand.
option. It's not forcing them to get the flood
Well, they have
insurance.
to pay for that.
No, they don't.
yes,
They
they
don't
do.
have to pay.
They pay $1,000, they were just
$1,000.
And that's just a high-level estimate of what it would cost
What
To,
basically,
for, what, wait a minute, pay for what?
to get an elevation
To get it.
certificate through FEMA.
Oh,
It's an application process.
Yes,
So that's a
okay,
one-time-
Yes, that's true.
One-time
It's a
deal.
one-time fee, though, rather than
You can't
cost.
unsee something at this point.
No,
That's the hard
I
part.
mean,
of
what do
this.
you do?
Now let me
The other-
ask you, you know, whenever FEMA comes back in every so often and redoes, you know, things because people that, you know, that happens all the time around here. In Franklin, I'm trying to say the people that had not been in the floodplain in the new direction, it turns out that they are. When is that coming up for us, do you think?
Well, they just recently did it. I couldn't even guess when FEMA would come back and map it. They generally will just stop at the limits. Does that answer your
and
question?
they just released the latest round of maps in 2016,
And
so
they-
you're still a few years away from them redoing
They
it again for
chose
our area.
again with this update to not do the tributaries, and again, it stopped right there. They didn't choose to expand it or
Okay.
push it farther down.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second. Anything
To do
else?
what?
Move it to the board.
To move, well, no, well, actually,
To
we're
move it to
moving
the
this
board,
to the
but what are
board to authorize the mapping of the area, which is gonna cost us, it would, we're authorizing the staff to negotiate a price to assist with the mapping with a firm to map this area for the floodplain.
Do you want us to
So-
bring this to the work session for the whole board to discuss?
I think we
Yes.
should. I think
It
we should.
seems like one of those kind
Is
of.
that okay for your motion? Sure.
Before we leave, let me just ask one more thing. All right, we map. It's here. A resident comes in and decides to pay the $1,000 and have their property surveyed. They send in their application to be removed. And then what if they're not?
Well, based on
Removed?
our study, they would be.
Yeah, it would be. What do you mean, removed? What if they're not
Removed.
removed?
They wouldn't have that, they would be out of their structure would be considered out of that floodplain.
But then
to
would
the-
they have to get flood insurance?
It'd be their choice.
It also
As
Is
I
depends
it
on the
understand.
lenders.
always their choice?
It may depend on the lender,
It
but
depends on the lender.
yeah, it
So
may
some
depend on the
lenders-
lender.
Some lenders you can prove to, my understanding is that some lenders you can prove to that
That's
the
true.
structure itself is out above the base flood elevation. Some lenders, if the floodplain touches your property at all, you're required to get
See,
insurance.
this happens on 96.
Yes.
You know, the water may not come in the house, but it comes right up, and they have to get flood insurance. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, they do.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I'm just confused no, I'm not confused, but I'm wondering what these people are gonna do if they are rejected.
Which is why one of our requirements for future, like for new developments, we don't even allow lots to be created in the
This is-
floodplain.
Yeah.
So we try,
This is
we
a
avoid it
vestige
completely.
of Before we had
Yeah,
the
you
stormwater.
don't have the luxury to
regulations.
go
That's
back
right.
and do that
You
now
wouldn't do
because
this
it's there. All right, so we have a motion to send it to the full board work session?
Yes.
Correct, and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, 4-0. Number 8, consideration of resolution 2019-01, a resolution approving the preliminary design of East Main Street, Franklin Road Bridge over the Harpeth.
So this one's kind of exciting project for us is that working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer, doing the Harpeth River Recon and looking at flood reduction, regional flood reduction measures that we could implement within the basin. One of the measures identified was to install 2 box culverts at Franklin Road. And it showed that there was a net benefit to do that project. As development started to proceed in this area with TDOT announcing the replacement of this bridge, we decided to hire civil and environmental consultants to help expedite the flood study. Ultimately, what they're recommending is to increase the spans of this bridge. It will ultimately remove approximately 53 structures from the floodplain.
53?
53 structures, and that's not livable structures. We've not quantified that yet. So that's just structures, period.
Where did I get
Where's
31?
53?
The original number from the
Yeah.
core flood study was 31.
When
or
we were looking
32.
at the box culvert.
When we were
Correct.
looking at the
approach,
box
So this
culvert.
is actually,
More.
it's increased because,
Correct.
with this solution.
53, you
So
said?
one of those structures could be a barn.
Some of them are barns, and we've
Got
not had time to go through and quantify. Many of them are homes. And we can generally show you that with our maps. First, I'm gonna walk you through our initial recommendations to approach TDOT with. And what the resolution here does is give direction to the city administrator and engineering essentially to proceed with those requests with TDOT formally having your support. But what we were proposing with the bridge was 3 12-foot lanes. You have your curb and gutter. We're recommending a pedestrian barrier, very similar to what you see on the Carruthers Parkway Bridge that we built. We're recommending an 8-foot wide sidewalk and then a rail. It's almost identical. We were very happy with the Carruthers Parkway Bridge. It's almost identical to that as what we would recommend. There'd be streetlights on it. We'd also request them to incorporate these additional spans into the bridge to help show this reduction of the floodplain. And so ultimately, TDOT makes a decision of what we do there. They will definitely take your recommendation very seriously and incorporate it. There may be a cost associated with that. So if we're asking for enhancements like a wider sidewalk or streetlights, they may ask us to pay for that. But we would like to at least enter into those discussions and negotiations with this concept in mind. So moving on to the flood exhibits, which I believe, Jonathan, are the last 2 pages.
Are you talking
6 and
street
7.
lights on the bridge itself?
Yes, they would be very similar to Carruthers, actually on the outside parapet walls, the railings.
Well,
And we
I would just add that since we are anticipating a lot of foot traffic in that area, that would be a good idea.
Yeah, and the
You
8-foot
need
wide
to do that.
sidewalks match pretty much what we're doing on Franklin Road.
Mhm, okay.
That's where we came up with those. So this is the flood mapping. What you see up here in yellow are the structures that are potentially removed from this. I must say that we did this study with updated LiDAR data. We did not use the FEMA LiDAR data, which is a survey, aerial survey information. And that does have an impact on the study, but the-
Where are we on this map?
this is St. Philip's Catholic Church here, City Hall, and this is the Harpeth River. You got the,
Oops, sorry.
Wait a minute.
Really zoomed in.
Okay.
I hit the wrong button.
so it has a big impact on Carton HOA and,
Heath
or is
Place.
it Heath Place?
Heath Place.
Heath Place HOA And then there's some structures along the subdivisions fronting Highway 96 here that get removed. And then there's a few others scattered out. This is the apartment complex right there by Lewisburg Pike. If we go to the next slide.
Come on, buddy.
You can see a few other structures. This here is Forest Crossing. The two structures in red actually get added. They're being added, we're reducing the floodplain. They're being added because we're using updated LiDAR data. And so the LiDAR data that we're using is better, more accurate than what FEMA used. And this is what our consultant showed. And so we're actually still reducing it, but the LiDAR data that we show those two properties being added in Forest Crossing. And so again, it's around 53 structures. We're recommending to proceed and approach TDOT with this request. Right now, they are in the environmental stage. Ultimately, any contract agreement or costs associated with the bridge improvements would come back in the form of a formal contract to the board to decide on that. If you're happy with the concept of the bridge and proceeding with it, we would recommend approval of this. Happy to answer any questions.
I'd like a little information about what the bridge is gonna look like.
Well, the Carruthers Parkway Bridge is generally what we've modeled this off of. We could definitely get more of a landscape architect or somebody involved in it, but it has, and I wish I would have taken a picture now of Carruthers, but there's a ped barrier. It's a form liner with a stone cap on it. And it's the same form liner you see all around Franklin. 8-foot wide sidewalk, and then there's an iron rail basically with columns, and the columns are where the light poles would sit on. And so we can definitely bring back pictures of that
Yeah.
I'd like to see
for y'all to
I'd
look
like-
Yeah,
at,
we should look at it.
and we're happy to work with you on any aesthetics that
Okay.
you'd like. And we can pull up
So,
Google Maps real
I have a
quick
question.
and
You
see if we
talked
can find
about,
it.
3 lanes. If they're gonna be northbound, 2 north and 1 south?
It'll be one north, one south, and one left turn lane. So either direction, suicide lane.
Okay, well,
How
let's
about
go, if we go
Sorry.
backwards to Harpeth, Square, part of that plan was for
Okay.
us to start a right-hand turn lane at the bridge.
Okay, you're correct.
So if I'm thinking north, that's right hand, and you just said the opposite, so help me.
You're correct. Actually, at the bridge and the intersection itself, it'll be a dedicated right turn lane. It'll be a through lane, and then there will be a very small left turn lane. Ideally, we'd have a bigger left turn lane, but unless we're willing to rip out a good portion of East Main Street,
Oh,
it is what it is. And it would be redoing all of the streetscape associated with it.
No, and that's fine. So at the bridge, let's say we're at Harpeth Academy or Lower BGA, coming towards City Hall North. You're gonna have 1 south and 2 north, but one's gonna be a turning lane to go right onto First Avenue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, we will absolutely incorporate that. And I'm gonna let Jonathan walk you through the Carruthers Bridge just so you can get an idea what it looks like. Again, we're open to anything. We were just happy with this bridge and
Margaret, you have something?
How's that gonna fit in with streetscape, the plans for streetscape?
We would
If
generally
it
use
looks like that.
we would generally use similar style lights that are used on a streetscape. Railings, the railings would match in color, so it'd be a Franklin green color versus a black. We can look at form liner options that match more aesthetically closer to what we would use on streetscape, those kind of things. I mean, in general, you're still gonna look at probably a bridge that looks similar to this. So you'd have a solid barrier to prevent cars from getting up onto the sidewalk or multi-use trail. And then you would have a railing outside of that for pedestrians to keep them from falling, obviously, off the bridge.
So the railing's only on one side?
No, in this particular case, you've got ultimately two separate bridges for Carruthers Parkway. For Main Street, or for
East Main?
Franklin, East Main Street, you would actually have one big wide bridge. So very similar to what's out there now, you would just have barriers between the pedestrian space and the wider sidewalks.
Mirroring the railing on both sides.
Correct,
Yes.
it would be
Got it.
identical.
And these lights here shown on the piers would be the acorn style Franklin green, and that was all submitted to
Yeah.
TDOT, saying, hey, here's the concept we want, but before you get too far along, we need to make sure our board weighs in on this, given the location, make sure,
Yeah,
And historically,
meeting
what
what you
TDOT does
want.
with the bridge replacement program is they replace in kind exactly what's there, any enhancements above and beyond that the city requests. they typically require the cities to pitch in some money to help pay for those.
And-
That poor bridge is not enhanced in many decades.
And I,
I believe it was a 1929 or 1931 structure, I believe.
We don't have much to work with by way of replacement.
No,
I would probably recommend, if we're not sure of this design fitting in, I would recommend that we consult with our streetscape landscape architect to have him weigh in on that look and feel.
I would really feel more comfortable to do that.
Yeah, we
He
can,
may say, fine, you know, just,
we can absolutely do that.
That'd be a good idea.
because I don't know what they showed on their plan for the bridge.
So do you wanna bring, can we
All right,
bring that
so
back?
what do you
Yeah,
want
we
to do
can-
here?
we can- I think we'd like to have permission to move forward with them, and ultimately, when we bring back a
Just incorporate it.
contract,
Sure.
Would that be okay?
Yeah,
we can show you some options and recommendations, and willing to work with you as many
That'd be
changes as you
great.
need.
Okay, so you want a, I don't think we have a motion on this. You want this to move forward for, it says here, staff recommends approval of this resolution. So this is just go to the board now, or are you gonna,
Just go to the board for approval.
and you're gonna give
and this
it?
just allows us to
With
talk to
this-
TDOT.
All right,
Yeah.
got it.
We'll
All
work
right,
with TDOT and
I
we'll
need a
integrate the
motion.
streetscape piece with this, so you can
Okay.
take action on this and we'll just,
okay, I move that we send this to the board, full board, and in the process, wherever you think it's necessary, to talk about how it integrates with the, streetscape plan.
And we will go ahead and reach out to our landscape architects and our architects with
Thanks.
streetscape and go ahead and get that in the process.
okay, I need
That's my motion.
a second.
Second.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. All right, consideration change order, this is number 9. Consideration of change order number 2, which is final to the construction contract, City of Franklin 2017-0006 for the State Route 96 East Sidewalk Project with civil contractors at the cost increase of $208,684.31 with the time extension of 68 days.
So during construction, Atmos Energy made a few revisions costing around $85,000. They are liable to reimburse the city those. As a matter of fact, they already have reimbursed the city for those expenses. And that's just because of field changes that they decided to make working with our contractor and our city project manager. We also made some field changes with having to add additional storm pipe and make some modifications just due to utility conflicts. It took us a while to fully understand all of that and finalize this change order. So that cost the city's around $197,000.1681. We're also recommending approval of the time extension of 68 days, which was about the time it took us to figure out a lot of these utility conflicts that we got resolved. But overall, Civil did a very good job. We were very happy with their performance on this project.
It's really used.
Is
It is heavily
well
used.
used.
What is,
When I die, I want it to be changed to the name of it. 5 years later.
5 years later.
what is
Put a plaque
the,
Yeah.
so what about this cost?
One
Are
thing I
we,
did.
have we budgeted for this cost as well?
Yeah, it would come out of our capital funding that we have for these projects.
It's already paid. Already gone
No,
through.
it's not
No,
paid. We can't
this
pay
is
it
what
until
we're-
this is approved.
Move
Yeah.
approval.
Second.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. Number 10, consideration draft amendment number 3 to the professional services agreement, contract 2017-0007 with Barge Design Solutions for the design of intersection improvements at East McEwen Drive and Cool Springs Boulevard for the cost increase not to exceed $15,950.
So as part of the project, we were ready to try to go to
Is this the right-hand turn lane?
this right-hand turn
Okay,
lane
we
for
just wanna make
McEwen. We
sure
were ready
everybody
to
knows that.
try to go to bid in early January with the Avalon Square development, looking at the traffic impact studies, which we're calling out additional improvements to this roundabout. Jonathan and I were talking about it. We would like to go into this roundabout and be done with this roundabout for a very long time. This will be the third time we've gone into it to try to do improvements. And so they recommended additional lanes on Oxford Glen, just given the density. Those lanes could be built by the developer. but they would be done through a road impact fee offset agreement. And we're making the recommendation, if we're going in there, let's fix it now and add that additional lane on Oxford
Yeah.
Glen, so we're not disrupting traffic on multiple occasions in this intersection. We can be totally done with this roundabout and have it built out to the full capacity. So the cost increase will accommodate that. And right now, we're finalizing that right-of-way acquisition with Mr. Parks or the Avalon Squared owners.
So when would we be out to bid for this work?
As soon
I
as
would expect
he's,
us to- As soon as we settle on the right of way and we've gotten a preliminary verbal okay, I've got about half a dozen worth of comments left, probably 2 weeks for the plan set.
Okay.
So we're pretty much there, ready to bid.
Ready
We're-
to
we're
bid.
waiting on
Good.
him to sign
We need to do that.
the easement, the right-of-way
ASAP.
document.
When we talk about future intersections or future roundabouts or whatever, let's remember this and address this on the front end.
Well, we
I mean-
did address it on the front end. Avalon Squared significantly increased their density on that property. And so the studies that we had done were based on their old development plan. You've not approved the new development plan, but it is coming through the process right now, and
Yeah.
that is what caused this increase.
Well, but we need to anticipate changes.
Mm.
We need to anticipate that there will be more density, that there will be more building. Nothing's gonna go away. And so, rather than have to come back and redo and rethink and revote and restudy, let's do it on the front end, even if it looks gigantic on the front end. And think, why are we building this big thing?
That's right.
We'll need it.
I can actually give you a relative example of that is the Mallory and Liberty intersection improvements that we're looking at right now. And we actually, the original, initial concept we presented at a public meeting late last year was the full build out of that intersection. We actually got a lot of pushback from the local area residents who don't want to see that intersection grow. So we try to right size that and balance it with
Can't
the
take
local
it back.
area residents' needs as much as we can,
Can't take it
while
back.
still providing for future growth.
But you're gonna have a lot more, backlash if you come in later and then try to dig up everything and get more easements. Just do it on the front end, even if people fuss about it.
We agree with that, but ultimately that decision's up to the board.
Yeah, and it's not our ability to not say that that intersection won't grow.
You should see what the world would look like if we turn the engineers loose.
The old concrete and
Lots of
pavement.
pavement.
Two quick questions on this. So if we're gonna build that extra lane going up Oxford Glen, we have in our CIP that sidewalk, which we have people pushing strollers, we have runners, we have walkers, people going, today, just driving down there today was like 3 people. And I'm like, oh, get off the road, but there's no place to walk. So if we're gonna do that extra lane going up Oxford Glen up to what, Garden Club Estates Court,
Correct.
couldn't we make sure that sidewalk is put in at the same time?
Well, the sidewalk is actually, there's currently sidewalk on both sides for the small segment we would be looking at.
it
We would
stops
re-
right
we would
there.
re- That's only what we're proposing to replace is what's there.
Yeah, okay, just make sure that we get it all the way to that Garden Club Estates court, Garden Club Court, I think it is.
Yes,
And-
it will go that far.
And the other thing is, what did you say you're doing to slow the traffic down going into the circle?
So we're changing it's the entry alignments of the roundabout. It actually forces people to slow down. I mean, there's literally no way to drive straight through that roundabout. It forces vehicles to slow down.
Yeah, because the problem we have is the speed of people coming in there.
Yeah.
So is that going to be addressed on this round?
That is addressed with this.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, all right, may I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. Number 11, capital project status. What do you have?
For McEwen, Mac Hatcher, the pre-construction meeting is tomorrow at TDOT. So after that, they'll let us know what date they're actually gonna physically start construction, but I've been told that it'll be shortly thereafter the
Kent's
pre-con.
got a shovel they can borrow if they need to.
So that pre-con is tomorrow afternoon.
That's-
What else do we wanna highlight? We talked about several of them here, but Columbia Avenue, the design has started on Columbia Avenue widening. They're underway. They started
Design?
earlier
Oh,
this
good.
month.
Design started.
Franklin Road, we're scheduling a significant number of the closings of the
Correct.
initial residential properties that we've got agreement of sales on.
And that would jump into
So when do you
stormwater.
think you bid Franklin Road now? Are we looking at spring still?
Probably
No,
late
it's-
spring, maybe early summer.
Probably
Start
early,
in the summer?
it's probably summertime, and a lot of it depends on how acquisition goes and how many condemnations we get into. I think summertime is a more reasonable expectation to try to get that out to bid and gives us a little more room for the right-of-way acquisition process.
And we're getting into the meat of the commercial properties right now, so that'll be typically where a lot of condemnations would come if they come.
But we're pushing as hard as we can on that.
If anybody asks and someone's watching this, let's talk about, real quick, we talked today about McEwen Phase 4, and one of the slowdowns right now is trying to work with the utilities to make sure that during the construction, that the people living down McEwen can still get serviced with the utilities. And so there's been a hang-up there that you all are working on.
Correct.
So with that said, in case somebody is watching this, they want to know again why McEwen's not moving forward as quickly as we wanted it to.
And we're also working through coordination with the future locations of the utilities and the roadway work itself to figure out a way to best keep the road open during construction. It's a very difficult area to try to put a lot of utilities and the roadway through that hillside, so we're working through that as
And
well.
my understanding is what's come back to you, you were not satisfied with, and you have to,
We're reworking that right
Yeah,
now.
we got the roadway design down. The biggest part of it is when you got 20-foot cuts in these hills, trying to keep the utilities active. The utility initial design came back. There were some major issues and conflicts with that.
Yeah.
We're working to fix those, and the board was not kind enough to help fund those utility relocations to get the design done, which is expediting that project. We just need to get it finalized, and that's what we're pretty much working on the next 2 months of getting those down so that we can confidently
right,
start acquiring right-of-way as soon as possible.
all right. Just want to thank you for saying that. Any other items on this list?
Wait a minute, applying right-of-way, I thought you already had the right-of-way.
No, we do
We
not.
have
From McEwen.
pieces of right-of-way from past development dedications, but not all the
We
right-of-way.
need the major right-of-way is not, they've been trying to go to get right-of-way, but TDOT wouldn't let us because, there's
got the
federal funds involved, so they were waiting for that. Now, with our contractor, we haven't gotten really what we needed sufficiently for the utilities to make sure they're servicing the people, and the cuts are, it's very complicated, and it's not been to our standard, or well, actually, not sufficient to serve the people.
No.
So they've had to go back and rework this and work with this, and it's slowing us down, or we would have been out to get right away. So do you think within 4 months we will be out getting right away?
I hope within
Because it's just
I hope-
unbelievable.
I hope within 4 months we can start the appraisal process. A lot of that is gonna be subject to TDOT review and approval. But I do feel that we're gonna be starting those conversations
Mhm.
very shortly. In the next 2 months, 3 months, we'll have plans into
Yeah.
TDOT, and we can start talking to them about, let us go on right away, so we can at least get the appraisals going. We've already procured
I
or
just wish they would.
or
let
done
us.
the qualifications necessary to get an agent on board to do those appraisals, and so we're ready to go. It's just a matter of figuring out these utilities right now.
So it's slowing this down.
So we're
Alright.
bidding this project about a year from now still? Does that sound?
That
Well,
sounds reasonable,
Yeah,
and achievable.
Hope it's not
It's,
more
there's
than
not a whole lot of property. A lot of it's gonna come down to how fast we can get it through TDOT. If it was a city project, I'd confidently tell you, yes, it's a
TDOT,
year,
Chairman.
because we are very close with the plans.
Okay, anything else on this list?
Additional project I'll touch on from stormwater is the Jordan Branch Stream Restoration Project we've been working on up in Cool Springs East
Oh,
at
yeah.
Spencer Creek.
Another one.
That's the project we've actually tried to bid out twice and received no bids. So we've actually gone back and worked independently with some actual tree contractors, and we're gonna work towards breaking this into 2 separate projects, or 2 phases of the project. The first phase will be the tree removal, which is what has deterred normal grading contractors from bidding on our project. It's a lot of tree removal in a very tight area, and a lot of them were uncomfortable with that due to the limited access. So we're actually gonna bid out first a tree removal contract to remove the trees basically down to stump level, and then we'll bid out the stream restoration contract after that.
Will the stumps remain?
The stumps will remain initially, but with the grading, they'll come out.
Okay,
I just feel like we're Radnor Lake or
This has been tough on these people. I mean, I constantly have to talk with them as well,
And-
so.
And I
think-
would give the estimate, we're probably 2 to 3 weeks out from advertising for the tree removal.
All right, I'll let the HOA know that, because they communicate pretty well with them. All right,
Okay,
and Margaret,
I want to talk about Stormwater, Battle Avenue, and Figures Drive. Are we there yet?
well,
Is that where we are?
I think you're cherry picking from the list, so that's good.
yeah, I mean, is there anything on
You
this
mentioned
list that you want?
stormwater, so.
Go ahead.
Well,
let's
Battle
go to-
Avenue is part
let's
of
go.
your capital
go.
project discussion.
It's on my list.
It's on the list.
You as a board have to decide if you want to fund it.
So it's figures.
Mhm.
All right,
We
so,
just
So it's
ranked
fairground.
where are we?
You've all turned in your priorities,
And when
and
do-
we'll be setting up a time to get
Slides.
with you
I did.
to share those results and talk about where we go from there.
Okay.
Soon, within the next month, Eric?
I'll be looking to set, yeah, we're gonna look to set up a
Right.
special work session for that purpose.
And if you'd like to have a preliminary look at that, please feel free to stop by engineering and I'll show you my
We're working
spreadsheet.
through some
All right.
things right now, yeah.
Okay,
So, that is on here because why? Why are these two items on here?
Those are projects we already started the design phase, so they're in design at some point in design phase. And we stopped once we put all these in the capital project prioritization process.
So they're not funded or anything like that?
They are not funded for
It's
construction.
funded
They are
for
funded
design.
for some part of
Yeah.
design.
Not for construction yet.
all right, anything else on this list?
We'll take any questions.
All right, and then, all right, so, water in, number 12, water and sewer project, status, anything there that, the board would like to go over, or any of the staff?
So I'll hit on the most fun one, the wastewater plant. So we are, Hewitt is working on the access road to Matt Catcher right now, and then we're working on relocating the walking trail that's right there, and adding in the appropriate signage. We've been, Paula forwarded us some communication from Williamson County, so we've been in communication with them about the trail, to make sure that they're okay with that. So hoping that that entrance off of Matt Catcher will be open shortly.
And signed that no one else can use it.
Correct.
Okay. The Henpeck Lane Sanitary Sewer Project, that is, construction start date still February?
I'll take that, it was February, however, meeting with the school, they've asked us to extend it across beyond the original agreed upon location.
Oh.
And basically, we were gonna end it at the existing I think it's an elementary school there. And they asked us, well, we really need it for our new middle school, can you
You do.
extend it all the way across the property? And we said we can, but that's not what we had talked about. We'd always assumed that would be up to them to figure out when they built the school. So now that they've added that on, we've just completed the survey. We're pushing to try to have, by the end of February, the design done. We will not have permits in place, but we plan to go to bid without permits in place, because the permits are pretty much routine type permits that you get from the state when you build these. Very rarely is there ever a problem. So within the next 30 days, we should be advertising and going to bid with that project. And we still have plenty of time to meet the school's deadline to complete that project.
They've agreed to pay for that additional extension.
Right,
That is
they
a
got it.
cost that they knew was theirs, and it just made sense to add into this project. So
We can meet the
we're
deadline.
doing that.
Why do they
we-
want to do that?
Ultimately, to get to the new school
They're gonna
site.
have a middle school.
Now, they're gonna add a middle school.
Their thought is they're
Oh,
gonna get a
to a
better
new school.
price.
Okay.
They're gonna add on, I mean, they're gonna add a
All right.
middle school.
Now, the people that are on that line, as it comes across Lewisburg Pike, it's their understanding that they're gonna be able to hook on, is that correct?
If we hit their septic system, we will absolutely hook them on at no charge, no cost. That's been our policy. If we do not hit their septic system, it'll go through Michelle and her teams, and they will request availability through the board, and it will be a board decision on whether you allow them to connect or not.
If they do, what about the septic?
If we do not hit their septic system,
If they do
If
not,
it's damaged during construction.
oh,
don't.
oh,
If,
okay.
if the septic system or the drain field.
but if it's not damaged during construction, they have to request it per our policy through the board.
So will it come before us?
Yes,
Yes, it
to
will.
come onto the system.
All of them will come before you.
Yes, they're all outside the city.
Yeah.
Have you had any requests?
We've had one request on a property that was, one property away that you guys have granted already.
Many of them are interested in
El-
connecting.
Ellington?
They're just waiting to see if they get it for free or whether,
Well,
They have to
I
make a
did talk
request.
with somebody this week that had put in an application with the county, I think. Or maybe with the city. It's the property directly across from Henpeck Market on the lake.
Mm-hmm. I have not seen that one,
yeah,
but the availability is good for 1 year. So it wouldn't be wise for them to request it right now, because the year would expire before they could connect on,
Okay.
And one
if that
thing-
makes sense.
And one thing we have offered, any person we're acquiring property from, if they'll grant us the easement, we'll actually put the tap and sleeve in now to the main line, so all they would have to do is connect to that tap in the future. So we have offered that.
Still request availability,
Correct.
but we wouldn't have to go back
At
in.
our-
They would not have to
expense.
connect to our
Yeah.
infrastructure in that.
All righty. Any other? All right, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Goodbye.
Second? That's our new motion. Moving on. Out of here. Thank you.